Okay, welcome back for episode 4 of Physical Activity Move and Stretch Coach. So we're working on an application here, and let's just review how we're going. So I'll compile the code and run it. So this is where we left off last time. We just had our timers working. So when this exercise period timer counted down to 0, this one here would start timing down for the exercise we're going to do for that period. And then for each exercise, we'd have another timer. So we had 3 timers. We could have done it many ways, but that's the way we decided to do it. So that's fine. So now this one's gone to 0. This one's counting down for the exercise period. And that one there is clicking down for each exercise we're doing. So we might do 3 or 4 exercises per period, or 10, or whatever you like, by just changing the values of the timers. Okay, that's sort of where we've got it now. We've got an About button there, which doesn't do much, just displays a little dialogue. And we've got an Exit button. We've got a Now button that does nothing and a Done button that does nothing as well. So we've got 2 dummy buttons there that haven't been activated yet, and 2 buttons that do something but not much. Okay, so I might just do a few things before we kick off. So the first thing I probably want to do is put a comment header at the top of my code. You should do this on all your code you write. So author, file name. If you want to put a description in, do that. Otherwise, say C readme, which is the readme file you upload to GitHub. Whatever you like, that sort of thing to do. And even though all of this amendment history is in GitHub, it's still nice and handy to have it all in the program as well. Because often when you check into GitHub, you only put a single line comment. You can put much more, but often you just put a single line comment, and usually it's a short comment because it appears in GitHub GUI, and if it's really long, it looks ugly. So why not get in the habit of putting comments in your code as well for the changes you make? And so now we're up to 0.004, and it's the 23rd of February 2020, Myco or Moose. And we're going to do probably file IO this time, and we'll probably activate the Now and Done buttons. That's probably what we'll do today, I'm thinking. Okay, so there's a nice little comment header, and from now on, every change we do, we'll document the details up here. Like I say, it's all in GitHub, but it's nice to have it here because you can put a lot more detail here, and then you can search it and see what you did. What did I do 5 years ago? And you can read your detailed comments. Rather than what you did in GitHub, it might just be a single, a short comment. So not very much in GitHub, maybe. Before we go ahead too far as well, we should check our codes up to date. So we'll do a git bash here. Here's our git bash command. And we'll do a git status. And I know I'm up to date because I did it earlier. And I've just updated that to add the comment header. So that's why it's saying that's up to date. That's changed. And these are bat files that TextPad generates, so we can ignore those. Okay, so our git's up to date. I should have done that. I should have done it as the very first thing, done a git status. And if it was out of date on my local machine, I should have done a git pull to pull in the latest changes. But I knew I was up to date. I checked already. And I'm the only one working on it, so there's nothing really to check for me when it's a one-person project. Okay, so we added a comment header. I'll put that in as well. For file. And then we'll add file IO. And we'll activate our buttons. Okay, so and by file IO I mean we're going to read and write the list of exercises from our file. Okay. To start off with, we might just start off with the Now and Done buttons. So let's do the Now and the Done buttons. Let's activate those. So there's our Now button, and we go down to our constructor where we created everything. This is where we're activating buttons down here. And now button dot add action list. I'm just copying the line below. And okay, so before we type in a method here, or make a new method, let's see if there's something we can use that we've already done. Okay, let's scroll down. Start exercise period. So this method here is called when the main timer, that one that maybe takes 60 minutes to count down, when that reaches 0, this code here fires off. So we're starting a new exercise period. And that's exactly what we want to happen when the Now button is clicked. So we've got a method already done. Let's go copy that and use that. Okay, that's it. We've done the Now button. Now let's do the done button. Set exercise period. Let's see if we can get lucky again. Okay, so let's scroll down. This is when we do exercises. So when this timer fires, it's the end of the exercise period. So it's probably not a good name. Maybe it's finish exercise period or something might be a better name. So you can always think of better names as you go along. As your code becomes more refined and better, you can think of better names. I've called it do exercises, which I'll stick with for now. So when this timer fires off, we're stopping exercising for that period. We're stopping all the exercise timers that we're doing. So if we're doing hula hoops or something like that, we're stopping that. If we've got 2 minutes of exercise for an exercise period, we're stopping that. We're setting the progress bars back up to maximum, and we're kicking off the main timer again. This is the one that counts down the 60 minutes or whatever between exercise periods. Okay, so that's exactly what we want. When a user clicks the done button, that's exactly what we want. So let's grab that and use that. And there we go there. Okay, so that's probably going to be pretty good. We'll test that in a second. But as well as that, one thing we want to do is when the now button is clicked, we want to disable the now button and enable the done button. Okay, so we want to set the done button to enabled by default. I typed in this code earlier and Camtasia crashed, so I'm sorry you missed it. But I've typed in up here done button set enabled to false. So this is in my constructor that creates the GUI user interface. Okay, so done button set enabled to false. So that's not clickable by default. It's disabled because you can't finish an exercise period if one isn't active. Okay, so done button's not enabled. But when you start an exercise period, or you're in an exercise period, done button should be enabled. Okay, but the now button should be disabled because you're already in an exercise period. So let's just grab this little bit of code here. I'm just after these button names, and we'll paste it down inside the start exercise period. Okay, so when we're starting an exercise period, we want to set that. We want to set the now button to false. That's not enabled, and we want to set the enable button for the done button to true. Okay. So when we're in an exercise period already, we shouldn't be able to click now again because we're already in an exercise period. We can't kick it off again when we're in one. And but we should be able to click the done button and say we want to finish the exercise period. Similarly, when the exercise period is ending, we should be able to, these buttons should set their status as well. So the now button should now be enabled. Okay, because we're finishing an exercise period, we should be able to start one from any time onwards now. But the done button should be false because we're not in an exercise period, so we can't finish one. Okay, so let's just review the code quickly that I've added here. We'll go back up to the top. So I've added the listeners for the now and the done buttons. So these buttons are now activated. So when you click the now button, start exercise period will fire off. And when you click the done button, the do exercises or end exercises or whatever you want to call it, that method there fires off. By default, the done button is disabled. Okay, so when you click the now button, it's like the timer, the big timer going down to zero, counting down 60 minutes and going to zero. So this code here fires off. We set the exercise count to zero. We're starting a new exercise period, and we're starting our timers to kick off the exercises and the exercise, the time per exercise. We're stopping the main timer so it doesn't keep counting down, setting it back to maximum so it looks right. And we're disabling the now button, and we're enabling the done button. So the user can click on that and whenever they want to during an exercise period to end the exercise period. And the done button calls the do exercises method, which finishes the exercise period. Let's go back down to do exercises. And this timer fires, it's the end of the exercise period. So when this method here kicks off, so we stop our exercising timer, we stop our exercises timer for the period, perhaps 2 minutes every hour or 5 minutes every hour. Set the progress bars back to maximum so they look right. Kick off the main timer again so that the 60 minutes or whatever starts counting down. And then we can set our now button to enabled so we can start an exercise period anytime, and the done button to disabled because we can't end an exercise period if we're not in one. Okay, so that's all we did. We just made a couple of set enableds there, a couple of set enableds there, and I've activated those two buttons. and I've set the done button to disabled there. Okay, so 7 lines of code is all I've written in that little episode. So let's compile and test and see how we go. So there's a little app running, and you can see everything's counting down normally. Okay, so no one's in my office. I can start an exercise period. Let's do it. Okay, and they're counting down nicely. Cool. Okay, whoops, someone's come in, the phone's rung, I've got to stop. And we're back to the big timer counting down. Okay, so you can see we can click now. We can't click done, it's disabled. But if we click now, the done button becomes enabled. So we can end an exercise period early if we need to. Here we're only counting down, it's seconds each one, but this would probably be counting down 60 minutes or something, so you're doing exercises every hour. Okay. And so this one's counting down. We're not in an exercise period, so let's start one. Whoops, my phone's rung, I've got to stop, or my boss has come in. There we go, I'm back into the main timer there, counting down 60 minutes or whatever that we'd normally count down. Okay, so the timers are all working great. The buttons are working great. We've got the enabled and disabled working great. So let's have a look at our progress and see how we're going. Okay, so we've done that. Add comment, header to file, activate. So we've done the buttons, we've done the comment header. Now we're going to do some file I/O. So we're going to read the list of exercises from a file and choose one at random every time the exercise changes and display it in a label at the top of the screen. Okay, so we'll do that next. Okay, welcome back for episode 4 of Physical Activity Move and Stretch Coach. So we're working on an application here, and let's just review how we're going. So I'll compile the code and run it. So this is where we left off last time. We just had our timers working. So when this exercise period timer counted down to 0, this one here would start timing down for the exercise we're going to do for that period, and then for each exercise we'd have another timer. So we had 3 timers. We could have done it many ways, but that's the way we decided to do it, so that's fine. So now this one's gone to 0, this one's counting down for the exercise period, and that one there is clicking down for each exercise we're doing. So we might do 3 or 4 exercises per period, or 10, or whatever you like, by just changing the values of the timers. Okay, that's sort of where we've got it now. We've got an about button there, which doesn't do much, just displays a little dialogue. And we've got an exit button. We've got a now button that does nothing, and a done button that does nothing as well. So we've got 2 dummy buttons there that haven't been activated yet, and 2 buttons that do something but not much. Okay, so I might just do a few things before we kick off. So the first thing I probably want to do is put a comment header at the top of my code. Should do this on all your code you write. So author, file name. If you want to put a description in, do that. Otherwise, say C readme, which is the readme file you upload to GitHub. Whatever you like, that sort of thing to do. And even though all of this amendment history is in GitHub, it's still nice and handy to have it all in the program as well. Because often when you check into GitHub, you only put a single line comment. You can put much more, but often you just put a single line comment, and usually it's a short comment because it appears in GitHub GUI, and if it's really long, it looks ugly. So why not get in the habit of putting comments in your code as well for the changes you make? And so now we're up to 0.004, and it's the 23rd of February 2020, Myco or Moose. And we're going to do probably file I/O this time, and we'll probably activate the now and done buttons. So that's probably what we'll do today, I'm thinking. Okay, so there's a nice little comment header, and from now on, every change we do, we'll document the details up here. Like I say, it's all in GitHub, but it's nice to have it here because you can put a lot more detail here, and then you can search it and see what you did. What did I do 5 years ago? And you can read your detailed comments. Rather than what you did in GitHub, it might just be a single, a short comment. So not very much in GitHub, maybe. Before we go ahead too far as well, we should check our codes up to date. So we'll do a git bash here. Here's our git bash command. And we'll do a git status. And I know I'm up to date because I did it earlier. And I've just updated that to add the comment header. So that's why it's saying that's up to date. That's changed. And these are bat files that TextPad generates, so we can ignore those. Okay, so our git's up to date. I should have done that. I should have done it as the very first thing, done a git status, and if it was out of date on my local machine, I should have done a git pull to pull in the latest changes. But I knew I was up to date. I checked already, and I'm the only one working on it, so there's nothing really to check for me when it's a one person project. Okay, so we added a comment header. I'll put that in as well. The file, and then we'll add file IO, and we'll activate our buttons. Okay, so and by file IO I mean we're going to read and write the list of exercises from our file. Okay. To start off with, we might just start off with the now and done buttons. So let's do the now and the done buttons. Let's activate those. So there's our now button, and we go down to our constructor where we created everything. This is where we're activating buttons down here, and now button dot add action list. I'm just copying the line below, and now. So when the now button is pressed, actually I won't call it now because now is actually a reserved word in Java for dates, so I won't call it that. Now, yes, what do I call it? Now button, now, now. I like keeping things the same, but we're sort of stuck here because I've called it now. Now start, I'll call it, just so it's not now, because now is a reserved word in Java. Okay, so where we've done our other, in fact, we could even just call that. That's actually what we want to do. Set exercise count to 0, kick off the timers, and then stop this time that we're counting down with now, and set its value back to the maximum. Okay, remember that was when we start an exercise period. So that's actually what we want to call when we click the now button. We want to start an exercise period. So we can just go back up here and go start exercise period. Okay, let's have a look and see if we're as lucky for our end exercise period. So that's when we're starting an exercise period. We might want to do 5 minutes of exercises, all different exercises for 30 seconds each. That's where we started. This is where we're doing the exercises. This is where we're doing a single exercise for maybe 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And it's refresh GUI and main. So that's what's called when the exercise period ends. So when this timer fires, it's the end of the exercise period. So when the user clicks the done button, we just want to run this method. Do exercises or end exercises. Maybe it's a bad name. Maybe we can change the name, but I've called it do exercises. I'll stick with that for now. Okay, so up here, where we activate our buttons, done button, dot, add action listener event, and we'll call that method there. So done button should be the right name. Yep, it's done button, now button, and done button. Now button, add action listener. So whenever they click the now button, we're going to start an exercise period, and when the user clicks the done button, we're going to finish an exercise period. Okay. No 2 dots there. That can't be 2 dots. As well as this, when we start an exercise period, why don't we disable the now button and enable the done button? Okay. So up here, we'll set the done button to disabled. So we're disabling the done button. Okay, we set enable to false. So we're setting that button to not enabled, in other words. And when the now button is clicked, we want to disable the now button and activate the done button. Okay, so I'll just copy that little bit of code there because I'm going to use these button names down below. And in start exercise period, we're going to disable the done now button and enable the done button. So we can click done if we want to end the exercise period early. Okay, so let's scroll down to start exercise period. Down here, doesn't matter where. So we're going to disable the now button, and we're going to enable the done button. Okay, so we disable that button and enable that one. And when we click, when the do exercises runs. So this is when we're finishing an exercise period. We want to enable the now button and disable the done button, because we're not in an exercise period, we can't click done. Okay, so we're just setting our buttons up to match what's happening in the GUI. Okay, so just run through those changes again. The buttons are already added to our user interface, but they weren't activated. Here's where I'm activating them. So when the user clicks the now button, it'll run this code, start exercise period, which is the same thing that happened when the timer counted down to 0. Okay, the main timer. And then done button runs the do exercises method. So start exercise period. Come down here and look at that. That does all the things we looked at earlier. So it sets exercise count to 0, kicks off the timers for doing exercises and for the current exercise period. So if we want to do 2 minutes of exercise and 15 seconds per exercise type, then we can click off those timers, stop the main timer and set its value to maximum, set the now button so it's not enabled, and set the done button so it is enabled, so the user can click done and end the exercise period whenever they like. So they can end early. If they're feeling too tired, or they've got a phone call, or they're in a meeting and they can't do it, then they can click done whenever they like, and it just dismisses the application. And in do exercises, this is what's called when the exercise period has ended. So they've done their 5 minutes or 2 minutes of exercise in an hour. And so these are all this sort of code that was running last time we worked on it. So we're stopping our exercise timers for doing individual exercises and the one for the whole exercise period, maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it is. Setting the maximums back in the progress bar so they look right. Kicking off the main timer again. And now we're also setting the now button to enabled and the done button to not enabled. Okay, so that's all we've changed. We just put some set enables in, set enables, and we've activated some buttons. So that's really all the code we've written, just those 6 lines. Okay. Let's run it and see what happens. So now I should be able to click now, and this should go straight to 0, and these should start kicking down. And there they go. And I should be able to click done, and it should end the exercise period, and this one should start kicking down again, and those ones there aren't. So see how that works? That's working beautifully. Okay. I should be able to kick now again. So I feel like exercising, there's nobody around, I'm not in a meeting, I'm not on the phone. Let's do some exercise. Oops, someone's coming to my office, I can't continue, I've got to stop exercising, I'm done, I don't want to do any more. Okay, so that's sort of where we are, we're doing that sort of thing. Okay, so we've now got our now and done buttons activated. That's activated and nice. So go back to our comments here, so we've done that. That's working beautifully. We've added a comment header to our file. Now what we're going to do is a little bit of file I/O. So we can read in the comments from file, or the exercises from file, and pick a random one each time a new exercise has got to be done. We'll pick a new one at random. So a new file reader, and I'm going to read in the file exercises list.txt. You can call your file whatever you like. Okay, that's the file I'm going to read in. And while, so this is our scanner object, file in.hasNext. So we just use the scanner methods hasNext to tell if there's more data in the file. So while that's true, we're going to file in.next line. We're going to read in the next line, and we're going to append it to our TextArea. So exercises TextArea dot append. So we're appending it to the bottom, and we want a new line after it as well. So after each exercise, we want it on a new line in our TextArea. Okay, and that'll do that. So we're getting the next line of data from the file, putting a /n, which is a new line on it, and we're appending that to our TextArea. Okay. Before we start putting data in our TextArea, we want to make sure it's clear. So we'll just set text it to nothing. So that's clearing the TextArea, making sure it's empty. And after this code here is run, our TextArea will contain all the all of the data out of the file. Okay, now some of this code here can cause exceptions. It's mainly the scanner stuff. So we need to put this in a try catch. Try. And there's a whole bunch of you can catch individual exceptions if you like. I'm just gonna do the catch all, the parent exception, which is exception. And when that fires off, I'm just going to print out a stack trace to the console screen. Okay, I could also set the text area if you wanted to. You could also set the text area to blank to make sure it's empty, or you could set it to error, or you could display a dialog, or you could do a whole lot of stuff. So for now, I'm just going to display the stack trace to the screen, which is what happens when your program crashes. That's just the list of the call stack and what's involved in the crash, what line numbers are involved and stuff like that. Okay, so just to try catch, you can catch a whole bunch of different exceptions here. I'm just catching the parent of them all so that I can just have one catch statement. Okay, so just one is fine. So we need some imports here. We need an import for file reader. We need an import for scanner. So I'll just type them here, import java.util.scanner and oops, sorry, it should be io.file reader. So Java util scanner, Java io.file reader. So I'm going to cut those two lines and paste them at the top of my code, or put them at the top of my code before my public class. There we go. Okay, that should be it. So now we're reading the file. If the file doesn't exist, what's going to happen? We're going to get an exception. That's okay, because our text area will be empty. And so maybe we want to display a dialog and say no exercises have been entered, or maybe we want to have a default set of exercises. If there's none there, we might want to have a default set of exercises. We can work on all that sort of stuff later. For now, we're just going to get a stack trace on the console screen. And we want to work on exiting the program later, but we've got the loading happening now, so we're loading exercises from a file. Let's now create this little file, and we'll create it here inside our work folder. Oops, I can't even see. So I couldn't see the new menu, the new text file in my pop-up menu because the Camtasia recorder hid it. Okay, so let's just type in some exercise here. This is just our text file, and I'm going to type in hula hoops, touch knees and touch, or sky reaches. So you're reaching for the sky, toe touches, whatever. Just make up some exercises. You could leg lifts. Okay, so we'll get some exercises coming in. Okay, back to our code. Now, the tricky part. So when we start an exercise period, we want to choose exercises at random and display those in that label. Okay, so we want to get a line at random out of the text area and display it in the label. So just choose an exercise at random. Okay, so to select a random exercise, we'll create a little method that's going to pull a random exercise out of the text area. Okay, so let's do that. We'll create a little method to do that for us, help us out. I'll just put it down here, private string get random exercise. Okay, so what we want to do is count how many exercises are in there. Count the exercises in the text area and then select a random. Select and return a random exercise. That's what we want to do. Okay, so many ways you can do this. Many, like with everything in Java, there's many ways to do it. I want to do it by creating a string array, and I'm going to call it exercises. And I want to get the contents of the contents of the text area, exercises text area dot get text. So I've got the text out of the text area, which is all of the lines of data in a text area. I want to split it up by new line. Okay, so if there's 5 lines of exercises in the text area, split /n is going to split it up into 5 lines, and each of the exercises is going to go into a pigeonhole in the array. Exercise 0 will be the first one, exercise 1 will be the second one, and exercise 4 will be the last one. Okay, so the indexes of the array 0 to 4 if there's 5 exercises. Okay, so split your splits up text according to a delimiter you provide. It's a really great little function. Keep that in mind for future. I use it all the time. It's just brilliant. Okay, so the size of this array tells us how many exercises we got. So that's exercises.length. Exercises.length. That gives us the size of that array, and that tells us how many exercises we got. So we want to choose an exercise at random. Now there's many ways you can do, various ways you can do random numbers in Java. There's good old Java util.random, which doesn't generate very good random numbers. Not that that would matter for exercising, but hey, we might as well do it properly. You might as well get in the habit of doing it the right way, which is choosing strong random numbers. Never use Java util random. Okay, so there's much better ways to do it. Okay, so we're going to use Java security random numbers. So they're much stronger, much better random numbers. So we need an import java.security .secure random. So we're bringing in the random number class to use that. So you could use Java util random, like I said, but that generates really weak random numbers. They're not very random at all. This generates much better random numbers, so you might as well get in the habit of doing it properly. Okay, and then we want a random number object. We'll put that in here with our class data, private secure random, and I'll call it generator. You can call it whatever you like, equals new secure random. So generator is my object that I'm going to use to generate random numbers, and it's really easy. So we go back down to our code here that wants a random number, and so we go generator. So it's generator.nextInt. Okay, so if we've got 5 exercises in our array, exercise.length will be 5, and generator.nextInt will give us a random number between 0 and 4, which is perfect for an array index. Okay, so it'll be between 0 is less than or equal to x is less than the array size. Okay, which is just what we want. So we want to store that in integer, int rand val equals generator nextInt, and so on. And now what we're going to do is just use that to look up an exercise in our array and return it. Return exercises, square brackets, and we want to put random val as the index. Okay, so we've got 5 exercises in our array. This split command here will split them up by the new line. We've appended them to the text area with a new line. So we know they're split by new line, and this exercise.length will tell us how many exercises. Generator.nextInt will generate a random number between 0 and the number of exercises, so it's less than the array size. Very important. So we're not going to go outside the array bounds. And then exercises random value will give us that exercise at a random location, which is just what we want. There is one thing we could do here to make our code a little bit better. Let's imagine our file's got blank lines in it, and we don't want to include blank lines. Okay, so what we might do is just change this slightly, and I might go string line string equals that dot trim. So we're trimming off the white space from either end, and if that line string has got a length which is greater than 0, then we want to add it to the text area. Okay, so this little change here means that if there's any blank lines in our file of exercises, we're going to ignore them. We're not going to add blank lines into our text area. Okay, because it might be a bit strange seeing, asking the user to do an exercise and there's nothing there on screen to tell them what it is. Okay, so just a little change here can make our program a lot better. Okay, so we're stripping out the blank lines. Only if the line string has got a length of greater than 0, so there's something in the exercise name, then we'll add it to the text area with a /n. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. The next step is to call our getRandomExercise. Okay, so let's just look at our methods again. This is starting an exercise period. This is doing exercises. And that's ending an exercise period. And down here is where we do a random exercise. So this is where we want to call it. Okay, so we want to comment that out and go title text area dot set text, get a random exercise, and then that's it. So it might be hula hoops they see, it might be something else they see. Okay, so let's just get ready to compile and test, and we'll see how that looks. Okay, so let's compile and see how we're going, and run. And there's our code running. Let's click the Now button. Oh, so no exercise name's been displayed. Oh, now we're getting one. Okay, sky reaches, hula hoops. Okay, and we're outside of an exercise period again. Let's kick off another exercise period. Sky reaches, that's right. Sky reaches could be sky reaches. So it's a very popular exercise. It's getting hit each time. Let's do it now again. Leg lifts, toe touches again. Okay, oh, we're outside of an exercise period. So there's a couple of little issues there I noticed. The first one is the exercise doesn't appear until this little timer here is counted down once. Okay, so we can fix that. Let's fix that first of all. So you'll see here the exercise name appears when this do an exercise method is called. So when you start the timers up here, the timers are started, but they're not kicked off because it's a 1 second delay on a timer to count down, or 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever. So the one that controls the number of the exercises you're doing has got a delay. It might be 10 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever. So if you want to just kick it off straight away, you can just say do an exercise, and that'll pick an exercise straight away. Okay, so we're just calling this method down here. So we're saying, give me an exercise now at the start. I don't want to wait 15 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever. Give it to me now. Okay. So that's one little fix. Let's compile and run, see how that goes. There's other ways you can fix it as well. That's just one way. Let's go now. Oh, yep, toe touches. It appeared straight away. Leg lifts. The other thing I'd like to happen, this could be counting down for 60 minutes. We don't want the poor person doing leg lifts for 60 minutes. So maybe we'll display here, when we're not in an exercise period, we'll display, relax. You're not in an exercise period or something like that. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So when we're not in an exercise period, we want to display a message that reassures the user. Okay, so do exercises. So when this fires, it's the end of the exercise period. Okay, so this is where we want to do it. Title label, set text. Something like that. Okay, so we're just telling the user to relax. We're not in an exercise period. So let's run that and see how we go. Okay, so I'd like it there at the start as well, when we're not even in an exercise period, but let's click now and see what happens. Hula hoops. Hula hoops again, that's all right, it's all random. Toe touches. And we're not in an exercise period anymore, and it's got the relax So it's happening at the end of the exercise period. We want it there when the program first fires up. Okay, so let's look at that. So we could probably even call that method when the program starts, because it's just stopping those two timers, which should be stopped anyway. We're setting the progress bars to maximum. We're kicking off the main timer, and we've got the buttons set to enabled and disabled, and the title text. So I reckon we can call this method when the program first starts up. So we're now constructor. So let's do that. Again, it's a bad name. The more I think about this, the more it should be changed to, you know, end an exercise period or something like that. But anyway, we'll stay with that name for now. So here's our constructor. So we're adding all the stuff to the GUI, activating the buttons, set something to disabled, and I reckon we can call do exercises there as well. Okay, so let's just give that a try. So this is in our constructor, at the end of our constructor. Control 1, Control 2. Yep, relax, it's not an exercise period. Let's click now. Leg lifts, cool. Sky reaches, and leg lifts again. And relax, it's not an exercise period. So that's working great. Okay, we've got a little bit of duplicate code there we can get rid of. So this method here disables the, let's have a look. So it disables the now button, or enables the now button, which is the default value, and disables the done button. So we can actually remove one line of code from our constructor. It's not much of a saving, but we don't need this anymore. Okay, so we'll take that line of code there out. We don't need that, because that's already done by the method that ends the exercise period. Okay, so that's pretty well it for this episode, I think. I think we've done enough. So we haven't done the file I/O, but we've done the file input. Okay, we've added a text area. Behind the scenes, we haven't added the user interface yet. We've commented header, activated the buttons. So I think that's probably enough for this episode. So what I'll do before we finish is I'll do the usual. I'll delete those bat files, which will happen anyway when I exit TextPad. And I'll sort by type, and I'll save that as version 4. Version 4, which is episode 4. And I'll drop down into Git Bash. And I'll go Git status. And we've got 2 new files and 1 change file. That's good. Git add. We'll add everything. Git commit -m. So this is for episode 4. And comment header. So just a little episode this week or today. And so there's our commit and git push. And everything should be up to date. And we'll do a git status just to make sure everything's fine. And everything's up to date. That's beautiful. Okay, so if I go to my Git channel now, I should be able to and go refresh. And the changes, so there's the latest one for episode 4. Okay, so everything's up on my Git as we go. And so I hope that was useful. Thanks for watching. Next episode we'll probably do the file output, and we'll put the text area into the GUI so we can see the text area and type into it and type new exercises. And we might do a couple of tabs so that the user can click the settings tab or the main tab. And we might even look at setting some fonts. Okay, so stay tuned and we'll do another episode shortly. Thanks for watching. Hope that was useful.